Yeah, well, scroll. You know, in some parts, but it's a lot of work.
Good morning, how are you? That matters.
Did you do that?
Oh, that's okay.
There we go.
Qua e là andrai in sala e
Dove sarà collegato? Che audio prendeva?
con l'infrarosso perché la casa cosa abbiamo avuto in mente?
Sì, ma attenzione, qui sai, hai
Esatto, ero sul letto con un lanciatore tipo quello che
si vede che
Che queste qua sono prese alimentate. Probabilmente mandava un po' in tilt il caspedale. Sì. Dovrebbe togliere la fase, non la...
Falling
Che è possibile?
Est-ce que le master peut se faire dans la that would be assistance
Sì, sì. Poi
I think you're okay.
Yeah, let's make sure it's not. Okay. Hello. Yes, good morning.
Good morning. How is it? Giornate, Dr. Brian. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Good morning, everyone. Yes.
Oh,
Good morning. Buongiorno. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hello, I'm Doug O'Brien from the U.S., and I am the chair of the Rural Working Party for the TDPC, and have the pleasure of chairing this introductory panel that focuses on rural-urban partnerships, an integrated approach to economic development. I look forward to today's panel. It's a great, diverse panel of leaders from different parts of the OECD and with varied experiences on the topic at hand. I should mention that Ambassador Oliva, his train was late. He is on his way, so we look forward to seeing him. But I'll begin with introducing Deputy Director General Popens. Deputy Director General is is within the Directorate General of the Regional and Urban Policy of the European Commission, in charge of overseeing the implementation of structural and cohesion fund programs in the EU member states and candidate countries. I think it's appropriate to introduce him as the first speaker today, because indeed the Parliament within the European Commission, the idea for this work really came from there, in support for this conference as well as support for this very important report came from this body. So we look forward to his comments. I'll mention before Mr. Poppins joins us, just from my point of view as the chair of the Rural Working Party, just how important this conference is at this time. It really builds on the work of the TDPC and the work of the Rural Working Party that shows just how important that making sure that all regions and all types of regions, urban regions and rural regions, leading regions and lagging regions, how important each of these regions are, that each of them have something to contribute to the national economy, to the services of the people. And in fact, in many OECD countries, rural regions grow faster than urban regions. In fact, the recent finding that in 40% of the OECD countries, a rural region is the leading growth region in the country. What the report here does, I think, is it building on that work and how important it is to examine the relationships between urban and rural regions, making sure that the economic development professionals, the elected leaders in those areas in the private sector understand how important those relationships are and the dynamics and how to implement and grow those relationships to optimize the services in the economy in each of those types of regions. So at this moment for this report, and in particular in preparation for the ministerial in December, where this topic will be one of the key topics examined, I think this is such an important conference, such an important report. So with that, I'll hand the podium over to Deputy Director General Poppins.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and really let me start by saying that I'm very happy to be this morning in Bologna to discuss with you this concept of rural-urban partnership. We started, I participated in Warsaw conference, and maybe some of you were there, but in fact this whole initiative didn't come exactly from the European Commission. It in a way came from the European Parliament, which is even more symbolic, I think. In any way, I will not be very long this morning. I speak a little bit about this particular project and concept, but first, of course, I just wanted to explain to you where we are at the moment, because as you know very well, we are at the very important period in time. In fact, we are very deeply engaged with member states, the EU member states and regions, in negotiating the next programming period for European structural and investment funds. For our investment, it is 330 billion euros for 7 years, starting from 2014. But of course, if we add rural development and fisheries fund, it's even more. So we talk about large amount of investment which will be channeled to the member states and regions in the next 7 years. Now, we all know what is the situation in Europe and European Union. We've been undergoing very deep crises in many member states, in many regions. We felt the shortage of financing, the financial difficulties with banks. We felt also impact on growth quite considerably. So of course, in all these circumstances, but hopefully the indicators show that we are trying to exit from this crisis in Europe. And if you look from this perspective at the next 7 years, we also see that this European structural and investment funds, or investment coming from these funds, will be an extremely important source of investment into growth measures in many, many member states, and in some of them it will be the only source of investment. And this is why this is very, very important to get it right from the beginning. And this is why the Commission has proposed to have a revolution, to have a new approach to programming of the funds. Well, it's not a revolution, it's a continuation of what we've been doing also in this period. But what we've been trying to do, and together with member states and regions trying to put in place, is to ensure that the funds are much, much better prioritized, they are much, much more concentrated and focused, that we shift away the psychology of financial allocations or absorption of these funds, which is purely financial, you know, whatever is there, the most important is to absorb. We try to shift it away to the results, saying that intervention logic in the next period has to be completely different. First, you analyze your needs and challenges, you tell us exactly what you want to achieve in next 2-3 years, and then the funds come in and support your objectives and goals. And this means also that, of course, in the new regulation, there's much stronger legal basis for different result indicators and target setting, and the whole performance framework is a new initiative which is already agreed in a political trialogue. And of course, that means that we try to make sure that the funds reach really the most needs, that they actually are of a high value added, and that we increase the efficiency. Now, if you look at this particular concept of urban and rural partnerships, I think it's very good to discuss it. It's very important because one of the elements of this new approach is also trying to pursue integrated approach. There's no secret that in this programming period and the previous ones, if you look from the funds perspective, we have very important funds, the RDF Cohesion Fund, we have Social Fund, we have Rural Development Fund, Fisheries Fund, and people who implement programs within these funds sometimes don't know their counterparts, neither at national nor at European level, or if they do know, then they just know them by face. They don't know what the other fund is doing. And this is a problem not just at the, with member states or regions, also on European level. So in this period, we are saying we must have integrated approach. We actually have a common strategic framework. We have one partnership agreement per member state, which governs the investment from all 5 funds. And this is, I think, where this rural-urban partnership fits in extremely well as a concept, but also hopefully as something that can be implemented in the next programming period. If you look at our investment from ERDF and Cohesion Fund, we can see that major part of it goes to urban areas. You can call them cities, but we know that city as such is not limited to itself. It has an adjacent area, so we talk about functional urban areas. And this is why, of course, in our regulation we were transfixed of ensuring also that this 5% goes to sustainable integrated urban development. So it's a minimum requirement for each member state to invest into cities, but in an integrated way. Some of them will do more, some of the member states told us 10% or more. We are developing different tools to help cities to invest better. We will continue with URBAC 3 program, which is, supposed to help all those who implement investment in urban areas. And we will also establish a new instrument, Urban Innovative Actions, which will be managed by the Commission, 330 million euros. And of course, we will have an urban development network. So we are paying very important attention to also helping to improve the quality of investment into urban areas, because what has been missing in this period is this integrated approach. There are many good initiatives, green cities, smart cities, inclusive cities, you know, just name it, a lot of initiatives, pretty confusing sometimes, yeah? So now when we inherited, we've got the urban policy in our DG since end of last year. We're also trying to coordinate it with other DGs within the Commission. We are working intensively with member states on the setting the urban agenda. And in parallel, of course, we are trying to see how we contribute from our programs to this urban development. But it is absolutely clear that cities themselves cannot sustain growth. They cannot, you know, because a lot of people will be living there. And also the businesses, you know, they have to expand. And this is where rural areas come in. This is where this concept of functional areas come in, because you cannot just draw a line when the city ends and a rural area starts. So there's a growing importance of understanding this integrated territorial development and functional links between different territories. And I think this is something which this concept of urban-rural partnerships is trying to address. It's trying to say that, yes, there are very important links, and only if you have these links you can say that the territory is well integrated, and it actually contributes to more efficient use of resources and competences. It ensures long-term visibility of rural areas and the sustainable development of metropolitan or urban regions. And above all, urban-rural partnerships contribute to territorial cohesion. So territorial cohesion is about helping each territory make the most out of its potential. Connectivity, concentration, cooperation are key aspects to enable territories to make the most of their assets. And urban-rural partnerships in this context, they can be a key tool for cooperation across administrative borders. And of course, that means they can minimize the negative effects of urban sprawl. You know very well, natural resources, overexploitation, and so on and so forth. And it also can help to explore economies of scale, rationalization of the provision of infrastructure, public and private services, better connectivity, increases efficiencies of systems, and in turn it can, you know, support more innovation, more opportunities for small and medium-sized enterprises, and so on and so forth. So it can be actually driving factor also behind growth. Now, the funds obviously will be very important for many member states, as I said before. And this is, of course, where we can also support rural and urban partnerships from our funds. It's not just from the ERDF and Cohesion Fund. I hope also Rural Development Fund picks up this topic, at least this is what we understand, and that we can actually try to see how we do that, because there is no precise demarcation between, for example, ERDF and Rural Development Fund. There is a possibility of duplication and overlap. And this is what brings me down to the fact that this is why we need very good coordination. We need very good cooperation, and we will try to do it, of course, at the Commission level, because, as you know, we meet every week. I meet with my counterparts from other funds. We have so-called stock-taking group where we discuss how we approach, and now we are moving towards discussing situations in particular member states to see what can be supported from ERDF Cohesion Fund, what from Rural Development Fund, to see which fund is most relevant and which investment would have mostly the highest value added. So we are trying to do it at the Commission level, but we need also we need also member states and regions to do the same. We need you to look at this, you know, together, and we need to ensure that the ministries of agriculture talk to the ministries of commerce or trade, that the people who are managing authorities for ERDF have very close contact with managing authorities for Rural Development Fund, So only if this cooperation at national and regional levels, because in some countries you will have only regional programs, in some you will have a mix, only if this cooperation is embedded into the daily thinking of our fund managers, only then I think we will succeed also to find the most appropriate ways to fund such concepts as rural-urban partnerships. Now, they have to be mentioned already, I think, in our partnership agreements, and we will be looking at how we can ensure that this concept is taken on board in programs, because it has to be then supported by specific measures in our operational programs. But all I'm saying is that it requires a lot of cooperation. The concept is very good, but to put it in place, we need to do more, and we need to work actually together. So I will not I will not take more time, because you will have a lot of time ahead of you to discuss this. I wanted to thank you because, I used to be a diplomat in my previous life, so I know how important it is to thank you, everyone. So basically, I wanted to thank you, the Emilia-Romagna region, for hosting us here. It's a beautiful region, a beautiful city. We are grateful for the Italian government and the region and OECD for organizing this event. Well, we are particularly grateful to the OECD for doing the study. So this is very, very important. And of course, I also want to thank everyone who came today to discuss this very important concept. And we hope that, since Italy is holding presidency very soon, that during the Italian presidency we will be able to continue discussions on this very, very important topic. But on other topics related to territorial cohesion, I know that your government is very keen on having very substantial and good agenda during your presidency, and that is fully supported by the Commission, particularly by DG for Regional and Urban Policy, and our people, our director Charlina, and head of our competence center and experts will be with you through the whole event, ready to answer questions, to discuss. So I wish you very, very good, very fruitful and efficient work. And thank you so much for listening to me.
Okay. Deputy Director General, thank you for those comments. A very, very valuable context for the group and for this introductory panel. Next, I would like to introduce Ambassador Carlo Maria Oliva, who arrives to us today. He is, of course, the permanent representative of Italy to the OECD after serving a long career as in foreign service. He served as the Deputy Director General of the European Integration Directorate and successfully the Director General for the same directorate. From November 2007, he was designated Deputy Secretary General, and on January 10th, he was appointed Ambassador. Since September of 2010, he has been the permanent representative of Italy to the OECD. So we look forward very much to your comments, Ambassador.
Grazie. Sapete tutto di me ormai. No, sono molto lieto di essere qui oggi con voi per introdurre i lavori di questa importante conferenza sullo sviluppo dei territori rurali, che è stata organizzata dal Dipartimento per lo Sviluppo e la Coesione Economica del Ministero dello Sviluppo Economica in collaborazione con la Regione Emilia-Romagna, l'OCSE e la Commissione Europea. Come vi è stato appena detto dal Direttore Generale Poppens, l'odierno appuntamento costituisce il coronamento di un'azione pilota che è stata fortemente voluta dal Parlamento europeo ed è stata sviluppata dalla Commissione europea su legami funzionali tra città e campagna, su possibili partnership che possano agevolare processi di crescita a livello regionale. E vi è stato anche spiegato il motivo per cui all'OCSE è stato affidato il compito di sviluppare questo rapporto. Vorrei aggiungere però al riguardo un'altra motivazione. Abbiamo detto partnership tra Regione Campania e tra città e Campania. Il concetto di partnership è un concetto molto caro all'OCSE. L'OCSE è nata e si è sviluppata proprio come, per favorire partnership, per favorire cioè cooperazione e collaborazioni. L'OCSE è nata nel 1961, oltre 50 anni fa, però in realtà l'OCSE trae origine da un'organizzazione che esisteva già da prima, dall'OECE, l'organizzazione che era stata incaricata di gestire l'European Recovery Plan, cioè il famoso piano Marshall. Realizzata la ricostruzione dell'Europa nel dopoguerra, si è voluto salvaguardare però questa esperienza preziosa di cooperazione e di collaborazione che si è venuta a creare tra gli Stati europei ed è nata l'OCSE. L'OCSE ha perso con il tempo la sua dimensione quindi europea e transatlantica ed è diventata una relazione globale. Oggi ne fanno parte 34 Stati membri, è in corso inoltre di adesione il negoziato con la Russia. Sono stati appena avviati, proprio il Consiglio dell'OCSE lo ha deciso alcuni mesi fa, l'avvio dei processi di adesione con la Colombia e con la Lettonia. Nel 2015 si apriranno quelli con la Lituania e con la Costa Rica. L'importanza del peso dell'OCSE inoltre è accresciuto notevolmente in questi ultimi anni e anche la sua visibilità esterna, e questo grazie probabilmente anche alla crisi economica. E al riguardo vorrei sottolineare due aspetti che caratterizzano oggi l'azione dell'OCSE. Il primo è che l'OCSE lavora sempre di più anche con paesi non membri, con le cosiddette economie emergenti in primis, ma non solo quelle. E il motivo è abbastanza evidente. Se l'OCSE vuole continuare a contare nella governance economica mondiale e se vuole che i suoi standards, i suoi valori, le sue best practices siano sempre di più disseminati e utilizzati nel mondo, deve ovviamente aprirsi e lavorare anche con paesi non membri. La seconda caratteristica dell'azione dell'OCSE di oggi è che l'OCSE non lavora più e non dialoga più solo con i governi, ma gli interlocutori dell'OCSE sono diventati anche le autorità regionali e locali, il settore privato, istituzioni intermedie e società civile. Questo perché in una situazione come quella attuale serve uno sforzo congiunto di tutti appunto per lavorare insieme per uscire dalla crisi. In questo contesto, quindi, i temi che oggi vengono affrontati sono di particolare attualità e rilevanza. Le raccomandazioni che l'OCSE individua nel suo rapporto, che dà il nome alla conferenza, Partnership Rurali Urbane, un approccio integrato per lo sviluppo economico, sono quindi il frutto di un'analisi approfondita che è stata condivisa tra diversi esperti che hanno partecipato allo studio. E una delle caratteristiche appunto dell'OCSE è di coinvolgere sempre esperti di diversi paesi. In questo caso sono ben 11 i paesi che sono stati coinvolti, tra cui l'Italia, e quindi arricchendo il rapporto quindi con le esperienze diverse di ognuno di questi paesi. In questo rapporto non vengono solo trattate le tradizionali questioni che riguardano le aree rurali, ma soprattutto viene affrontata l'integrazione tra rurale e urbano e come questa integrazione può tradursi in concreti progetti locali di cooperazione con obiettivi di sviluppo economico. Ed è un tema quindi di grande attualità e di straordinario interesse sia per l'OCSE che per l'Italia. L'OCSE ha sempre promosso politiche in grado di migliorare le condizioni economiche e il benessere delle persone di tutti i luoghi. Una crescita economica, cioè cosiddetta inclusiva, che coinvolga il maggior numero di persone. Questo è un obiettivo chiave alla base delle analisi dell'organizzazione. Per queste ragioni il potenziale di sviluppo che può emergere dall'integrazione delle risorse localizzate nelle aree urbane e rurali merita una particolare attenzione. Il rapporto che viene presentato oggi illustra come si muovono i territori per ridurre i possibili gap tra aree urbane e rurali e per aumentare il loro potenziale di sviluppo attraverso una migliore integrazione delle risorse, spesso complementari, localizzate in queste aree. Ed elemento essenziale di questo rapporto è proprio il confronto delle diverse esperienze internazionali. Il rapporto comprende anche ovviamente l'Italia, c'è un caso studio sul territorio di Forlì-Cesena, in Emilia-Romagna, un territorio in cui le relazioni tra aree urbane e rurali sono particolarmente complesse e spesso fonte di proficua collaborazione. Connessa con i partenariati urbani e rurali, inoltre, la strategia nazionale per le aree interne, che è stata recentemente elaborata da parte del governo italiano e che rappresenta un segnale di forte attenzione rivolta a tutti i territori, andando oltre la tradizionale distinzione tra nord e sud del Paese, ma precisando che il destino di questi territori è un tema di rilevanza nazionale. Partendo dalle analisi e riflessioni del rapporto, le sessioni che si svolgeranno oggi e domani potranno quindi essere indubbiamente essere utili agli esperti, ma direi soprattutto ai responsabili delle decisioni politiche. Il momento oggi, lo sapete bene, non è facile. Occorre promuovere delle politiche che siano atte a favorire la crescita e soprattutto a favorire l'occupazione. Ed è quindi una maggiore integrazione tra aree urbane e rurali può dare il suo importante contributo, un contributo di grande rilievo nelle attuali circostanze. Grazie e buon lavoro.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. Excellent opening comments providing the context from the point of view of Italy. I want to introduce next Secretary Matt Erskine, who serves in a number of roles important to this conference. He is a vice chair on the TDPC. He also, in the United States, is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Economic Development for the U.S. Department of Commerce. And what that means, I have the distinct pleasure of working quite a bit with Secretary Erskine. His agency supports regional economic development throughout the United States, as well as does a number of other important things, but in many ways he's the Chief Economic Development Officer for the United States. And he served in a number of different important posts, both in the private sector as well as the state government in the state of Virginia as the Deputy Secretary of Commerce there in the recent past. So look forward to your comments, Secretary Erskine. You can, either way, whatever you want.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my distinguished fellow panelists. It is a pleasure to be here in Bologna for this important discussion on behalf of the chair of the Territorial Development Policy Committee, Mr. Paul LeBlanc, and the whole committee. This important discussion on territorial development policies for rural areas, and most especially today, the discussion about achieving better outcomes through more effective and sustainable rural-urban partnerships and better managed and coordinated rural-urban integration. Because at the end of the day, as we all know and I think share, those better outcomes certainly include increased regional economic performance and inclusive and sustainable growth, leading to improved quality of life and prosperity. As my other distinguished panelists have said, it is indeed an important time for this work, and the joint activities between the TDPC and the Rural Working Party are indeed important and are indeed productive, and certainly include the recent report, Rural-Urban Partnerships and Integrated Approach to Economic Development, which serves as a valuable piece of research in the growing knowledge, the growing body of knowledge for the TDPC and its partners. And I want to, on behalf of the TDPC, express our gratitude and support for the Rural Working Party and their work and efforts to bring this report to fruition. It is important to note that the findings of this work will constitute one of the three thematic pillars of the TDPC ministerial meeting to be held in Marseille on 5-6 December of this year, which will be themed Improving Quality of Life, Fitting Policies to Places. The TDPC ministerial is designed to cover two major areas, taking stock of what we have learned over the last 5 years, and it has indeed been an eventful 5 years, and moving forward, define what the TDPC and its working parties need to focus on going forward. You know, the research and findings embodied in the Rural-Urban Partnership Report and the work of the Rural Working Party will contribute significantly to the work at the ministerial. The research and findings also make more relevant and evident the place-based approaches and the bottom-up approach to economic development that have remained as a driving focus of the TDPC and its working parties. The conclusions are well aligned with and certainly complement other areas of the TDPC's research and analysis. For example, the findings and conclusions of the findings and conclusions under discussion at this conference and of the report certainly touch on the impact that thoughtful and robust rural and urban interactions can have for successful economic development, as well as the importance of managing the dynamic relationships between rural and urban areas. And it links very well with what the TDPC will be discussing in Marseille regarding the multi-level governance around investments, the importance of working together in this regard, and the principles to consider when managing such interaction in order to maximize the impact and the return on investment. The research also refers to the changed and the continually changing landscape of regions, regional economies, the regional economic ecosystems, and the territorial relationships within them. And as policymakers continue to seek out the innovative ways to address both regional and national issues of competitiveness and productivity, to enhance and restore growth, and to ultimately maximize people's well-being, this research offers additional insights and perspectives for policy decision makers that importantly go beyond administrative boundaries. And then exploring the innovative examples of the rural-urban linkages and partnerships from around the world, this work contributes very significantly to the TDPC's broader focus on identifying how to achieve more inclusive and sustainable growth for our member countries and beyond. The value that the 11 regional case studies, the value of that practical applied thinking that those case studies bring to this research cannot be overstated. The case studies exemplify the increasing efforts by the TDPC and its working partners to provide real-life and applied perspective and insight, as well as robust comparative analysis that proves meaningful and practical to policymakers. In fact, it builds on previous complex comparative analysis, such as the 2012 project on linking renewable energy to rural development, which involved case studies in 16 regions across Europe and North America. And it also builds on the 2012 project on innovation-driven growth in regions, the role of smart specialization, which examined bottom-up, publicly supported strategies to build global competitiveness resulting from regional specialization. Our own interagency regional innovation strategies program in the United States, including especially our Rural Jobs and Innovation Accelerator Challenge, serve as strong examples of on-the-ground applications of the policy and thinking embodied in the report. The case studies contained in all of these research reports and in the work of the Rural Working Party highlight in real terms the importance of the coordination of policies and activities between and across levels of governments in order to maximize benefits, and the importance of effective collaboration between the key players in regional economic ecosystems. Thinking about where people live and work necessitates a recognition and a firm understanding of the different regional realities and contexts, and how governments, communities, and businesses can, by working together, harness the varying regional potential. The TDPC's ministerial meetings' overarching theme is where policies and people meet. And so overall, what comes through in all of this work is the importance of the concepts of effective interaction and partnerships, and what the potential that they have for people, governments, and regions in order to improve the quality of life. So again, I want to thank the chair. I want to thank you all, my fellow panelists, and let you know that we look forward to this continued conversation, this important conversation throughout this conference, and together with TDPC Chair Paul LeBlanc, to taking the insights forward to Marseille in December. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Erskine. I think that provides an excellent context of this work from the TDPC perspective, both in the recent past and the very important near future of the ministerial. Next, I would like to introduce in place of President Irani, Patrizio Bianchi. He is a full professor of applied economics, formerly the rector of the University of Foroni. He's a former regional minister of education and labor, right here in the region of Emilia-Romagna. And he's an expert of industrial policy and political economy of structural change. So we very much look forward to your comments, Professor Bianchi.
I see the people.
Okay, that's good. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you, all of you, for your coming in Bologna. On behalf of the regional government, let me say that we are very proud of the fact that the Commission, OECD, the national government decided to deliver this conference in Bologna. Both the term that you are using in this report are extremely relevant for us, are constituent characteristics of our regional structure and also of our action. Partnership on one side and the linkages between rural areas and the cities. In this region, we consider that partnership is the part of the method of government. It's crucial, and in particular in the moment of strong structural change, in the moment with the entire organization of economy and society is changing, to maintain a strong relation, a continuous dialogue among the different responsible of the society. It's not only a matter to find good instrument to increase the growth. It's the way to create a sort of resilience of the society in front of the external shocks. We had in this region a dramatic experience last year. We have an earthquake in this area between the city and the countryside. And we reacted because these linkages between the rural area and the cities, this continuous interaction in the economic linkages, in the social linkages, in the human linkages, were so strong to resist to such a dramatic shock. And also in the economic crisis, I believe that all those areas which are structured, which are framed by these continuous relations, are stronger, not only in resisting to the crisis, but to transform themselves, to be innovative in the shocks. So let me say something about this region. This region is the area between the river and the mountains. And this region was founded along the long way from the river and the sea. And along this street, there are a variety of different cities. The cities are small and medium-sized cities, and they are historically rooted in the territory. So that is in our story, in our blood, this relation. But there is now a variety of different relations. For instance, in these cities, because these cities were flourishing in the centuries, having the bourgeoisie of the city, having the property of the rural activities, we have this connection. In the northeast of the same region, in the area of Ferrara and Ravenna, this is different, because for centuries, this area was a marsh, the marsh created by the river, by the delta. So that when, at the beginning of last century, the government decided to dry the pond and to regenerate a new rural area, this rural area had no relation with the city. We are in the same region. We are speaking just of 50 kilometers of distance. But the ecosystem, as you said, is completely different. The ecosystem is a long-run dynamics. So, it's there to study and to look inside the history of the different places, because apparently same relations are historically based on a very different context. On the other side, also the towns changed in recent years. There is a large movement everywhere in Europe, but also in the States, to renovate the cities, to regenerate the center of the cities, to rediscover the historical basis of the town. And this is important because was coincident with, in several cases, with the crisis of the old industrial system. So in the last 20 years, this relation was dramatically different in the different contexts. So we need a general method that is to work together for growth, but we have to apply in a very different way, because also inside the same region, we have different ecosystems. For this reason, I think that this research that you presented today is so important, because it's based on cases. It's not a general theory. It's what we can learn from the experience. And we have different experiences. And we have the case that we have to go deeper in the different cases. They're not just best practices, they're different histories. And what we learn from these different experiences? First, there are some driver of change, of structural change. One is innovation, not just technical innovation, also organizational innovation. And the second is the territory. Territory itself is a driver of change, of structural change. In front of the same shocks, different contexts can react differently. But this axis of structural change based on the innovation and territory, that in our history in Europe means the intervention on research and technology, horizon today, and territory, that means structural fund, are not enough to explain the change, because we need to introduce another axis, that is the axis based on entitlement and resources. That means the rights of the people, the capacity of the people to be real entitled to play a role in the society, to be really participate to this sort of development, and on the other side, the capacity to create resources. If you put together, you find that you have a variety of possibilities of intervention. For instance, it's crucial. In the area between territory and rights, you have the entire area of policy for welfare. If the people are not allowed to take part in the society, they are excluded. And you cannot reduce the society. The first way to develop an area is to allow everybody to take part in the society. The second, between entitlement and innovation, is the entire area of human resources, of education. There is no possibility to be resilient. There is no possibility to guarantee growth if you don't allow people to be educated. Educated in different ways, but human resources is crucial. There is no possibility to have a different kind of society if we don't educate our children together to have a different society. And then, between innovation and resources, the entire area of innovation, we have a set of policies in these kind of things. And I think that the new approach that is on research programs in Europe that is not based on disciplinary activities, but on challenges, society challenges, I think is crucial. And then there is the capacity to take all these potential and to reverse in the territory in order to change the territory. Well, this means three things. First, the new approach to policy is an all-government approach. There is no one policy. There is a variety of policy to play together in different mix. That is an all-government approach. That means that this idea of linkages, this idea of partnership is horizontal, involving all the people taking responsibility in an ecosystem, but is also vertical, from the municipality to the European Union for us. This capacity to work together and to make policies in such an all-government approach is very difficult. We have to train people. Education is also for people involved in policy making. To do policy making in such a way is different than to write a decree. It's different than to write a law. Is a continuous capacity to analyze and to adjust the reality with the people involved in this reality. Also, policy making must be smart, inclusive, and sustainable. The way of thinking policies is changed. Let me say something at the end. Partnership is not the final end of our job, it's just an instrument. Partnership is the way that we have to use in order to design and implement a variety of instruments to allow the people to have a common dream of a different, prosperous life. So that also the people involved in policy making, they have to face a period of study and learning. But this is crucial. And it's crucial also to have research, this kind of study and this kind of conference in order to implement the idea that we have to learn from the others. And thank you, because we have learned a lot from your research. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you for that welcome and for that, for those very valuable observations and a reminder about the ends of this excellent work. Next, I would like to introduce our keynote for the introductory panel, Deputy Secretary General Yves Leterme. Deputy Secretary General was appointed in December of 2011, and he is in charge of social affairs, education, governance, and entrepreneurship within the OECD. Before joining the OECD, he held a variety of political posts in Belgium. A very impressive list and shows, I think, the diverse perspective that he brings to his work, and I think that he'll bring to this conference. After starting his career as an alderman in his hometown of Ypres, he became a deputy in the Chamber of Representatives. He was a group chairman, national secretary, chairman of the CD&V party, minister president of the Flemish government, federal senator, deputy prime minister, and minister of budget and mobility, minister of foreign affairs, and prime minister, of course. With that long list of service, I can't believe that he was born in 1960. It's such an impressive list of work that he's done over the years. Yves is currently the Minister of State and a municipal councillor in Ypres. And at a professional level, Yves has worked, among other things, as a deputy auditor at the Belgian Court of Audit and as an administrator at the European Parliament. So please welcome Deputy Secretary General Leterme.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, the most important thing to say in the framework of our meeting this morning is that I still try to combine my work in Paris with a very humble position as a chair of the City Council of one of the best places in Belgium. Mr. Minister Patricio Bianchi, Signora Presidente dell'Assemblea Legislativa della Regione, Director Popens, Mr. Ambassador Oliva, you're playing a home play today, international guests, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we are, on behalf of the OECD, and the colleagues are there in the front row, we are very pleased that we have you here, you all, to participate in already the 9th Rural Development Policy Conference here in this magnificent city of Bologna. Despite the Belgian weather, it's really a very nice city. E prima di tutto vorrei ringraziare la Regione Emilia-Romagna, il Ministro Bianchi per la sua ospitalità, ma anche la Presidenta Palma Costi per il suo aiuto e per permettere che questo incontro sia un successo. Minister Trigilia understood will join us tomorrow for the closing part of this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, this year we gave the title to the conference, the same title as the report we are launching today, and I quote, Rural-Urban Partnerships, an integrated, and I refer to my predecessors here, an integrated approach to economic development. And this is, in fact, this report is a result of a 2-year research project carried out by the OECD, of course, thanks to the initiative, driven by the initiative of the European Parliament, subsequently the support by the European Commission. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Popens. And the report we are launching today aims to really identify, but more than identifying, to understand the increasingly complex relationships between urban and rural areas and how these relationships can be better managed to maximize regional economic development and people well-being. But why, ladies and gentlemen, are rural-urban relationships so important, so relevant today? In fact, we meet at a time, October 2013, when many countries, amongst which our member states of the most developed industrial countries all over the world and economic developed countries all over the world, are still struggling in different ways, but struggling to return to a more stable growth trajectory in the wake of the crisis. And of course, a key issue, a key priority in the policies is to restore economic growth and to ensure, moreover, that this growth is inclusive from an environmental point of view, but inclusive, moreover, from a point of view of cohesion, social cohesion, and also regional cohesion, a growth which is as inclusive as possible, meaning that it should also foster equity. And our organization, the OECD, is very active on this issue and is currently working for building strategies to foster this inclusive growth in countries, in regions and territories. Ladies and gentlemen, if economic growth is a key priority, and it surely is, we should recognize the need to tap the growth potential of really every place of our territories. And urban territories and rural territories each have potential for growth. And of course, a key factor for regional economic development, consequently, is precisely enhancing and managing the relationships between urban and rural areas. We found indeed evidence that places where urban areas and rural areas interact more closely, where these regions are closer and where institutions are more inclusive, that these parts of our constituency, of our member states, perform better than others in terms of growth, of population and GDP per capita. We can prove this on the basis of our evidence. And in this context, rural-urban tools, rural-urban partnerships are really tools to govern the complex relationships between urban and rural places. And this is really very important, as Minister Bianchi already stated and other colleagues, because these partnerships, when well designed, appropriately designed, they can mobilize the development potential endowed in both areas. And one strength is that they are tailor-made, that they are tailored to the specificities of each place and can spur the complementarities between the different resources. The evidence from the report we are launching, we are presenting today here in Bologna, shows that rural-urban partnerships can really help territories to enhance the production of public goods, firstly, to achieve economies of scale in public service provision, and to coordinate decisions that have cross-boundary effects and increase the capacity of the partners. And these 3 to 4 issues are really key to be successful in regional development. And they can also very precisely and concretely develop new economic opportunities. And in the report there are lots of examples which are shown, but for example, in Nuremberg, in the southern part of Germany, the partnership helped to strengthen transport connections and to improve the chain of value added in the region. Another place, Forli Cesena, for instance, cooperation between actors located in medium-sized cities and rural areas made it possible to build, for instance, an integrated food production chain linking an entire territory to the market. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, these partnerships, these frameworks of cooperation are not an end in themselves. The real goal is to enhance economic development, to spur growth and people's well-being. Achieving the potential benefits of rural-urban partnerships requires finding appropriate governance mechanisms that include, of course, the right actors at the appropriate scales. Of course, cooperation can also be a source of administrative burden and sometimes also leads to very harsh conflicts. But solutions to these challenges through inclusive and effective governance arrangements really can be found, and there are very good examples in the study. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, based on what we have observed in different of our member states, the governance of rural-urban relationships can be very different. And it changes depending on several characteristics, including, for instance, the degree of formality of cooperation or the extent to which the partnerships are deliberately set out to manage rural-urban relationships, explicit versus implicit partnerships, and also, for instance, the degree of delegation of competences and functions to the partnership within the institutional framework of a given country. But each resulting approach has specific characteristics that vary according to the goals of the partnership and the institutional context. So it is very clear that, and it's important for an international organization active in policy advice, it is very important to underline that there is not such a thing as a one-size-fits-all model, as it will be explained more in detail this afternoon during this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, having very clearly common objectives and genuine interest is, of course, the fundamental, the starting point for effective partnership. However, working together for rural and urban stakeholders is not always easy. There are obstacles. There are several obstacles that can hinder cooperation, and these obstacles are sometimes even introduced by policy, even sometimes introduced by the partnership. When sectoral policies, for instance, are not coordinated, this can be reflected in actors working on themselves, working alone. National, for instance, urban and rural policies rarely take on board any interaction between urban and rural territory. Likewise, the allocation of resources to contiguous urban and rural territories is often carried out without acknowledging their interdependencies. Ladies and gentlemen, the report that we present today, the report that we launched today on behalf of the OECD, proposes a real strategy with, so to say, 5 main recommendations to help build both efficient and effective and sustainable rural-urban partnerships. And these recommendations call for national, regional and local policymakers' participation in making the partnership really effective. And I would like to elaborate a little bit on these 5 basic important recommendations. First, territorial challenges and opportunities should be addressed at a scale that accounts for the actual relationships between urban and rural areas. Seems evident for you, is not evident for all policymakers. Indeed, the boundary of the so-called urban and rural areas is in fact, in reality, in most of our countries, increasingly blurring. And these elements are deeply interconnected in spaces that we call functional regions. And within these functional regions, you have lots of interactions and you have a kind of tendency to increasingly blurring overlaps between the urban and rural concepts. And this reflects the places where people live and work and where different urban-rural relationships occur. And these relationships should be governed at the right scale in order to maximize their outcomes and to manage the positive, both the positive, but also the negative externalities generated across traditional administrative boundaries, sometimes old-fashioned traditional administrative boundaries. So the first principle, the first recommendation is that these challenges and opportunities should be addressed at the right scale. Secondly, a better understanding, a better assessment, a better analysis of the different conditions in urban and rural areas as well as of their interdependencies should be promoted, and further integration should be encouraged. I would say cross-government. So indeed, national and regional governments should produce data at the appropriate spatial level to really understand, to show the different urban-rural dynamics and the extent of their interdependence. This can increase the awareness of territorial opportunities and challenges, and this can, of course, help to identify the enormous potential for cooperation, especially where this potential really exists. Better access to services, jobs, and amenities should be promoted. So a better understanding of the different conditions in urban and rural areas promoted by figures, by evidence shown by the different governments. Thirdly, third recommendation is to encourage really the integration of urban and rural policies. This can be achieved by working towards a common agenda at the national level, but also at the supranational level. National governments should encourage better integration across policy sectors, such as, for instance, between agriculture and regional development policy. This can really foster a dialogue between rural and urban actors, a dialogue that might otherwise work in, or regions that can otherwise work in isolation. And to achieve better policy integration, each level of government, of course, is involved, and each level of government should try to coordinate and align national and regional strategies on urban and rural development with projects and plans devised locally. Fourth recommendation, there is a clear need for an institutional environment that really actively supports rural-urban partnerships and that promotes them. Indeed, the legal and regulatory framework should no longer be an obstacle to rural-urban partnerships, which it is too many times the case now. Local authorities should have the instruments and the flexibility to find the most suitable form of cooperation given their particular needs. And developing trusts at local level is important to facilitate cooperation. This can be achieved by promoting inclusive governance approaches where both rural actors on the one side and urban actors on the other side are fairly, in an equilibrated way, represented in the decision-making process. Last but not least, fifth recommendation, partnership objectives and related measures to reach these objectives should be clarified from the beginning on in order to improve learning and in order to facilitate the participation of key urban and rural actors, to motivate them. Indeed, local actors involved in the partnerships should set clear objectives based on shared interests. And this is, of course, the starting point to start effective collaborations and to motivate both policymakers and administrations. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe at the OECD that these specific recommendations which you find in the report will help urban, or can help urban and rural stakeholders to really work together and to overcome some of the obstacles that today keep them working separately. Ladies and gentlemen, I will close. But to close, let me remind you, of course, and it has been said by the predecessors here, that the rural-urban partnerships will represent a very important pillar in the next OECD ministerial meeting in Marseille, and that your work is taken on board for that meeting. Indeed, in lots of the OECD countries, a better understanding of urban-rural relationships and of the way to govern these relationships is gaining increasing attention, which is understandable. And the messages from this conference, the conclusions of your work here, will give an important input for the meeting in Marseille. And I can really close now for that reason in thanking you for your contribution, thanking you for your presence, and thanking you for your active participation in the debate yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and of course for listening to me. Thank you very much. Grazie mille. Thank you.
Well, excellent. And thank you to the entire panel. I think this introductory panel provided a great platform for what promises to be an excellent conference over these next 2 days. So I just want to personally thank everyone for your time this morning, and look forward to the rest of the time. I'll finish. I think we have a coffee break now, and the schedule is 10:45. We'll probably move that back just a little bit. The first session on fostering and supporting rural-urban partnerships will be right here in this room. So thank you again, panel.
We start in just 8 minutes? My God.
No, we have half an hour coffee break. Okay. I think we're running out of time.
How will I switch the slides? To the computer or there is a sort of...
You have to stand
Okay,
here.
okay,
I'll give you the, we have to share the mouse.
Okay. Oh, no problem. Yes.
I wish I have a chance.
Ulrike, a che ora comincia?
Alle
11.
bravo sono le no? It's like, I don't know. Oh, wait, no, that's right. I'm on the right. The ones that I left downstairs, and so next meeting for the sessions 2 and 3, I can kind of do that, waiting for doing them down from There's no code, you just need to select
Oh, no, it's too much food for that. No, but you want me to suck his ear.
I don't want last night. I'm way too much in the conference, huh? 5 minutes. Okay, because I but I need to.
So all the city.
And I understood that yes, just 5 minutes to react. Okay. Maybe this is afternoon. Today. I don't know. Opportunity. Pronto? Sì? Allora, Fiera 8, davanti alle torri, il passeggero si chiama Porte. It's the chair who tells me.
Okay, so when the presentation is on, how do we change the slides?
So you use the mouse. So I'll be just handing you. I'll be sitting here, and then you come and speak here, and I'll just give you the mouse, and you just click.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to do a little trial?
Yes, I wouldn't mind.
So if you just do just a normal click on the mouse, it just moves on to the next slide. No, normal.
Oh, so that's left.
Left click. Did I say right click?
No, it's a normal click.
Yeah, normal click. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Or you can use the scroll, but sometimes if you use the scroll, it takes you too far.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all good. So
Okay.
will I be able to see it there though?
Yep, you'll have it on there too.
Cheers, thanks.
Hi, Jenna.
You ready?
Yes. Do you want to say at the end that about the registration for the events, or do you want Lara to say that?
The registration for
Because
events.
Ulrike mentioned it.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
So for the rural
That-
trips, you mean?
Yeah, I think that people that wants to register, they should do it.
Okay. Yeah.
No?
Yeah. But maybe we need to give them a list of what the rural visits are to remind people.
I don't know this.
Maybe,
Don't
can you
have
check
it.
with Uli? Maybe ask her to print out the 3 rural trips
To Ulrike.
to Ulrike, and then we can give it to the chair and say, just to remind you, you have to
Okay.
register for trip 1, trip 2, trip 3, you know,
Okay.
and what it is. Don't you think it's better if we can tell people what the trips are? Oh, Paolo, do you want me to write her? Do you want me to send her a text? Yeah, because you're coming on soon.
Yeah, if I don't find it.
So what's your name?
I feel it inclined to the
Oui?
So you're in this session.
Yes.
Si?
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Qui ci sono i problemi. Ok.
I can't switch them. Social. Finally.
So I suggest that we will start the session, first session, which is entitled Fostering and Supporting Rural-Urban Partnerships, Key Aspects for Consideration. I would like to ask you kindly to take your seats. Thank you very much. I am Władysław Piskosz. I am head of unit for inclusive growth, territorial and urban development at the Directorate General for Regional and Urban Policies in the European Commission. And my unit was involved in arranging the contract with the OECD on this study. Please take your seats and please take your seats because we should start it. We will have today the keynote address by Paolo Veneri, the economist from the OECD. Paolo, together with Betty-Ann Brice, was the co-author of the report which is presented today, which is a result of several months of hard work with the involvement of many regions, 11 regions across the world. And I was particularly pleased to have very close collaboration with the OECD team during the process of elaborating of this report. I would like, without any ado, to invite Paolo to present the keynote address to this session. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Vladek. Good morning, everybody. I will present some of the key elements or the key factors that emerged in the study, in the OECD study on rural-urban partnerships that we are launching today. Basically, I will address two main questions. The first is why rural-urban partnerships are important. So why to talk about rural-urban partnerships, why this topic is relevant now. And the second main question to address is how to build effective and sustainable rural-urban partnerships. Well, this means also giving a broad overview of the whole project, to count you a little bit what is the storyline, what are the final recommendations of this report. Well, addressing the first question, first of all, means understanding urban-rural relationships. So how do we understand, how do we frame these urban-rural relationships? What is our conceptual framework? And what are the implications of these relationships? And then how to govern these relationships. That will be an extensive analysis. In the report, there is an extensive analysis of this possible instrument, of these experiences of rural-urban partnerships across OECD countries. And we'll see, I will briefly describe you what are the main benefits that we can achieve, so why they are important. And then, in talking about the recommendations, in talking about the strategy to build effective and sustainable rural-urban partnership, I will, building on the speech that have been already given by Mr. Leterme before, I will try to highlight some three main elements of this strategy. That means tackling the appropriate scale, so matching the scale, including the relevant stakeholder, and the third one is learning, so the dynamic of the partnership. But let's go to the point. As you know, rural and urban areas have been traditionally considered as separate, both in academia but also in policy. Sometimes even policy considers the two areas separately, sometimes even place-based policies consider urban and rural areas two different objects. So it is important just to be aware of the fact that urban and rural areas are integrated, are increasingly integrated. So that means that what happens in one area affects what happens in the other area. So the first point is that these areas are integrated. And when we talk about the integration, about urban and rural areas, we are talking about functional regions, because we are talking about linkages. We are talking about linkages that take place in several functions, through several functions. These places are self-integrating, so are driven by the market, for example. There are rural stakeholders that demand urban services and urban resources and vice versa. So this is the first point. The second point is that both areas, whose boundaries were increasingly similar in a way in terms of economic specialization and so on, but they have both potential of growth, they have both potential of development. We have evidence in the OECD, in this project and also in other projects that we carried out recently in the last years, that in terms of growth and development, in terms of dynamics, the regions that are characterized by a predominantly rural territory are growing even faster than on average in the OECD, on average. In terms of level of GDP per capita, of course, there is a difference. Urban areas, urban regions have a much higher value. But in terms of growth, there is not such a difference. And it's important to highlight that what characterizes really rural regions is a high variability of performances. There are rural regions, for example, that grow very, very fast, and other rural regions that are declining. So we found evidence that what explains this variability, one factor that explains this variability is that those rural regions that are closer, that are more integrated with urban regions are experiencing higher growth rates than the others. So there are basically, there is a positive relationship on proximity. This means that there are both positive growth spillover in terms of population growth and GDP per capita. So when a rural region grows, the close-by rural regions, and I'm talking about at the small regional level, not just a municipal level. I'm talking about a wider kind of relationships. So there are positive spillovers of growth. And even accounting for these spillovers, there is a positive effect of distance. So really being close to a city, when rural and urban are close, this can really make a difference. And we have a difference. We have evidence for population growth. That is, for example, a key issue when talking about rural-urban interactions. We know that the population movement between urban and rural regions is a key issue when talking about rural-urban relationships. Well, what are urban-rural interactions in our study? We conceptualize in our study rural-urban interactions as a complex set of interactions that include, for example, population movement, but includes also economic transaction, of course, consumption, working-related movement, but also linkages in terms of services provision, linkages in terms of environmental goods, in terms of amenities. And of course, these linkages are affected, are declining with distance. So distance is still a key factor that explain the intensity of these relationships. So, given this, it is important to understand what is, these relationships should be governed. They can be a source of higher economic development, but they should be governed. And we should understand, first of all, what is the space, what is the scale of these interactions. We should know what are the effects, the implications also in the space, how these different areas are interrelated. So that's why we talk about functional regions. And we know that rural-urban partnership is a possible tool to govern these interrelationships. So these partnerships are driven by these linkages. And which linkages? Well, labor market flows are keys. When we talk about functional regions, when we talk about urban and rural areas, we know that labor market flows are important. But in a rural-urban relationship, that is not the only linkage. We observe in our case study, for example, that the partnership that we observe, the collaborations, were not driven only by this kind of interactions. There were some other kind of interactions. What are the key points on this? In talking about the scale, we have to understand that, first of all, the spatial scale that we consider depends on the purpose of the partnership, or the objective, on the linkages that we want to govern. Second, that the boundary, the spatial scale that we consider should be flexible of the partnership. And we have an example. For example, in this slide, you can see a map. I don't know if it is readable, but it is a map of the Nuremberg metropolitan region. That is one of our case studies that really shows that the boundaries of this partnership, that is this body that was created to cooperate, is much wider than the labor market areas that are the typical and maybe most important relationships that we should consider. But they are much wider because there are many other interactions that are taken into account. For example, in the case of Nuremberg, they had to cooperate for the transport network, but also there are some soft factors like the territorial identity of the place that wants to promote itself and sell its image to the outside. And simply the identity or some economic complementarities can drive really the cooperation even at a wider level. So it is important to have this kind of flexibility in considering the scale. And this is an example of a polycentric region where there is not one big city and a rural hinterland. This is a large region of 2,500,000 people, but still there is a polycentric structure, so there are different cities of medium size and a large rural hinterland. So what are the benefits? So we understood that there are relationships. These relationships should be governed at different scales. And what are the benefits that we observe when we look at different experiences of rural-urban partnerships? Well, the benefits, we classified these benefits in several ones. For example, the production of public goods. And this is a general benefit, but means preserving the landscape, means creating larger antique markets that are more efficient, connecting, for example, rural areas to cities in terms of economic relationship, really. But it's very important, especially in the predominantly rural territories, where the rural territories have have a higher weight, it is important also to achieve higher economies of scale. So through the partnership, really we observe that they achieve to provide services, to join resources, and provide services more efficiently. Then, capacity building, of course, account for the externalities that are cross-border. When we talk about functional regions, when we talk about rural-urban relationships, we are talking about relationships that cross also the administrative boundaries, of course. So sometimes the partnership, so one of the linkages to govern, of course, is the negative externalities in land use, for example. We talked about sprawl, even yesterday I heard it. And this is a very important topic also for to make a more efficient use of land, to coordinate these things is important and is something that is strictly related to urban and rural areas and their interdependence. Also, overcoming coordination failures, that means that when we want a partnership, when we observe a partnership, often it starts from a strategy. It starts from a strategy of economic development that is inclusive, include urban and rural areas. That is the first step for coordination. To avoid that each stakeholder has its own agenda or strategy that can conflict one to the other. To make more efficient, it's good to have coordination. So, there are, of course, some potential risks, as it was mentioned before. Like, of course, cooperation means also transaction costs, means sometimes additional burden, and means one challenge is also the risk that when there is a cooperation, then the benefits are not well balanced and well distributed. This is important for the sustainability of the partnership over time, of course. So, these are these benefits. On the whole, what are the main factors that can help to create effective and sustainable partnership? Of course, the first one is the awareness of what is going on in the territory, the awareness of what are the territorial challenges, what are the interactions, what are the interdependencies. This is something that requires analysis. Then, if actors, stakeholders have clearly defined objectives, of course, this helps. If an inclusive governance approach is chosen, this also helps the fact of giving the right weight to all the stakeholders included, and also the leadership. Main hindering factors when we talk about the relationship between urban and rural areas, sometimes we talk about territorial objects that are different in terms of scale, in terms of size, resources, economic conditions. When there are very large differences, of course, this cooperation can be more difficult. Then trust is another key element that really drives, and we have an example here. For example, in Italy, the case study that we observed was an example where trust was very important to drive cooperation. When there is already a territorial asset in urban and rural areas of high level of trust, this really helps, and trust can be built, of course. And another hindering factor sometimes is introduced by policy when different sectoral policies target different areas or different actors that then don't work together because they have the habit to work only in one direction. This can make the cooperation more difficult. So, we'll just give an overview now of the strategy that was already mentioned before by Mr. Leterme. And in observing this partnership that are composed by 5 main pillars, I would highlight three main drivers of these pillars. The first one that regards better understanding of urban-rural relationships and adopting a functional approach, basically, to territorial challenges, is related to matching an appropriate scale to overcome the challenges and to reach the opportunities that each territory can have. The second main element, the second main message regards the inclusion. Doesn't regard the scale, but regards the scope of the partnership. So it is important that the key actors are included, both urban and rural ones, to make an effective rural-urban partnerships. So inclusion. The third one is learning. So when we take into account the scale, the scope, and then the dynamic. So it's important to learn. And how to learn? Of course, this is related to also the monitoring. activities, to the assessment of what the partnership really does. So regarding, to be a little bit more specific on these recommendations, a better understanding of rural-urban conditions and interactions can help to build an awareness of the potential to cooperate, and this means that there should be, we should promote, in a way, the use of data, of analysis, the production of data at the territorial level. So analysis at territorial level is important to understand these interdependencies, because before addressing interdependencies, we have to know it. And also it's important to understand this relationship and promoting the further integration. So within functional integrated space, it's important to promote further accessibility to jobs, amenities, to services, and so on. Regarding the fact of adopting a functional approach, that means, first of all, looking beyond the city center labor market interactions. When we talk about rural-urban interactions, we have to look at a wider set of relationships that comes from rural to urban and vice versa. We promote also the encouragement to territories to identify their territorial development strategies around these functional geographies, and the use of flexible planning tools that include both urban and rural areas. We have examples, for example, in some of the case studies, we observe that there are tools, planning tools that are used that can be very effective. I think about Rennes, for example, where they have this cot that is an interesting experience. The third recommendation regards the working towards a more coordinated, at least, agenda between different policy sectors. And this includes both this can be done both by using common instruments. Also, it's important in this respect to encourage the participation of different government levels in the partnerships. In several examples, we have several examples in our report where we mention the fact that those partnerships that had a very strong vertical coordinations, for example, where there are national or regional strategies that are aligned with the plan and projects devised locally, that really helps the effectiveness of the partnership. Regarding the fourth recommendation, that this building an enabling environment for rural-urban partnerships, this is related, first of all, with the regulatory and political barriers that should not prevent the formation of the partnership, of course, but also to trust, to develop trust. And this, to develop trust, I mean, the exchange of information between different stakeholders, I mean, the international networks of experiences should be promoted, of course. Develop, for example, pilot projects around win-win issues, or facilitated dialogue through facilitators, and so on, are, for example, direction where it's possible to go to build trust, where this trust is not particularly strong. And also, it's important to involve, as I said, to include the relevant stakeholders by adopting also governance approaches that are inclusive. We have a governance framework in our report, and when there is an inclusive governance approach, is when there is a fair partitioning of voting rights, for example, or taking decisions. This is important. And last, how to learn. We learn through a better understanding, so through the more analysis, but also learn through the analysis of what are the impact, in a way, of the cooperation. What are if these projects are effective or not, can really, first of all, improve the learning, and can also be effective in including relevant stakeholders. By relevant stakeholders, in this case, I mean, for example, the private sectors. In some of we have examples where many of the partnerships that we saw basically are driven by the public sector, actually. And we observe challenges in involving more businesses, the private sectors on board. And this, the monitoring, having clear objectives for the short term, for the medium term, and for the long term, and to assessing this objective is really important for this purpose. In a way, this is important for the private sector because having, first of all, clear objectives, but also some measures. So we should develop also indicators and measures to improve and to include more stakeholders. Thank you.
Many thanks, Paolo. I appreciate very much this very synthetic but very informative presentation. This is what I like with OECD, that the difficult problems are thoroughly analyzed and clear messages coming out, and I find a very useful piece of information in this report for the policymakers at various levels, European, national and regional. I would like now to invite colleagues from the case studies. OECD has made 11 case studies in various regions, and the first is far away from here, from Australia. I would like to invite Madame Elaine Carbines, from the Chief Executive Officer of G21, the Geelong Region Alliance, just to react to Paolo's presentation. How does it refer to her region? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for including Australia in your study of rural-urban partnerships. We're absolutely delighted that the delegation came to visit us in Geelong last year. So I wanted to explain to you a little bit about our region, about the structure of the alliance that has been formed over the last 11 years, about our foundation document, our guiding plan for our region, the Geelong Region Plan, why the alliance has proved to be successful over the 11 years, some of the challenges we face, and an example of the success of G21, why it's continued to be relevant over the 11 years. So G21 is actually a company. It's a formal alliance between 5 municipalities in the Geelong area of Victoria, and I'll show you a map of Australia in a minute so you can see where Geelong is. We're a forum across municipal boundaries, so across those 5 local government areas, to discuss issues of regional interest. We support the delivery of projects that have been identified by the 5 municipalities, and we also have a formal designation by the federal and state governments as the Regional Strategic Planning Committee for our region. And so that allows us to speak with one voice to both levels of government in Australia. So there you see the G21 region is almost at the bottom of Australia, in the state of Victoria, in the southwest of our state. The 5 municipalities that make up the G21 region are Colac Otway, the Greater Geelong City, which is the largest city outside metropolitan Melbourne, which is the capital of Victoria, the Golden Plains Shire, the Borough of Queenscliff, which is a tiny municipality that only has 3,000 people living in it, and the Surf Coast Shire. The whole region takes up about 10,000 square kilometres, and we have just shy of 300,000 people living in our region. Our population is growing quite steadily at about 1.7% per annum. We have a very diverse economy which is constantly changing, and it's often changing subject to international pressures that really have no genesis in our region, such as the global financial crisis. We're a very attractive region in which to live. We're the home of the Great Ocean Road, if you've heard of that. It's one of the main tourist destinations in Australia. We have beautiful national parks and obviously a lovely coastal scenery with great surf beaches. Our structure, it's our governance structure. We have a board that oversights the work of G21, and the board comprises the 5 mayors of the municipalities. plus the 5 chief executive officers of each of the municipalities, and 5 directors that are elected from the membership of G21. We not only have our 5 councils as the core members, but we have over 180 businesses and community organisations that are members of G21. They have to be organisations that are located in our region. So there's a very high-level strategic board that I report to. We have a large board of 15 people, but a very small administration. Only 3 people really manage the operations of G21, and I'm the main person that does that. But the engine room of G21 are our 8 pillars that you can see represented there, our 8 themed groups that we call pillars across a range of topics, be it sport and recreation, environment, transport, health and wellbeing, planning, education and training, economic development and arts and culture. We have over 300 professional people who donate their time and experience to prospering our region, to advancing in some way the Geelong Region Plan, to advancing the prosperity of the lives of the people that live in the Geelong region. So that's the engine room of G21. That's where the ideas come from, and those ideas are, I suppose, addressed up through me to the board for implementation. So it's very much a bottom-up organisation. Our foundation document is the Geelong Region Plan. Now, this plan is a very high-level strategic visionary document which looks at where our community wants our region to be by 2050, what we want the region to look like and how we want it to work across a range of measures. It took 2 years to develop this plan, and it was a highly consultative process over those 2 years, involving over 1,000 community members and business representatives from the G21 region. And so it's across a range of measures, be it land use planning, education, be it environment, be it connectivity, be it the economy. This is where the goals that we have for our region. And each of the 5 councils have adopted this plan. So it's our roadmap for the region, and we were able to advocate for this to our state and federal governments, who have both formally adopted the plan as well. How do we implement this plan? Because it's all very well having a high-level strategic vision, but you need to be able to practically implement it. So the members of the pillars, those 8 pillars that you saw before, look at ways in which they can, in some way, implement the plan. Is it recommending a new road network for the G21 region? Is it lifting the educational skills and entertainment of people living in the region? Is it diversifying the economy of our region? And they recommend projects to our board for consideration for priority status for advocacy to both the state and federal governments for investment. The success of G21 is that over the last 5 years since this plan has been in operation, we've attracted over $2 billion worth of investment from the state and federal governments into our region, because the governments like working with a region that speaks with one voice. So why are we successful? We're successful because this idea came from the councils themselves. It wasn't imposed by the state or federal government. In fact, they thought it was a really terrific idea when the G21 region first came up with the idea, and actually supported its implementation initially by some small seeding funding to get us started. But it came from those 5 councils, particularly the City of Greater Geelong, the major city in our region, who wanted to work across municipal boundaries and recognised that problems don't just reside in one particular area. They actually infiltrate the whole region, and we needed to have an integrated approach to addressing issues confronting our region. So it's very much owned by the 5 councils and our community. It's been in process for 11 years, and it's endured over that time. But it's endured because we have a formal agreement between the 5 councils and G21, a memorandum of understanding that's is renewed every 4 years. It's refreshed every 4 years to make sure it still is current and appropriate for the 5 councils. And that sets out the funding arrangement between the 5 councils and G21. Our budget is lean. We only get about $600,000 a year from the councils to run G21, and that's done on a proportionate basis so that the City of Greater Geelong, that makes up 75% of the regional population, pays 75% of G21's costs. The Borough of Queenscliff, however, that makes up 1% of the region's population, contributes 1% of our costs. But this is the interesting thing about G21, that even though there's 5 councils contributing different levels of money, they all have the same vote around the board table. So even though the Borough of Queenscliff only contributes 1%, its contribution is recognised and acknowledged as much as the City of Greater Geelong's, which contributes 75%. And that's the equanimity around the table is really important to the success of G21. The administrative team is really important. My role as CEO is very much relationship management, keeping all those 5 councils on board, keeping them happy. Communication is very important for G21. That's one of my areas of speciality. And working with all those 8 pillars. It's not easy coordinating 300 volunteers. Even if they're really heartfelt and motivated, you still need someone to keep them on task and keep them working together towards a common goal. So that's important. Our formal role with the federal and state governments is important also. The fact that they come to us for advice about our region, that we can go to them with recommendations about priorities for investment is critical to the success of G21. We have on our pillars government representatives embedded in each pillar. So we have senior bureaucrats from all government departments in each of the pillars. So in that way, there's a high level of trust. There are no surprises for the governments about the work of G21. They know what we're working on. They help shape some of our priorities. They give us appropriate advice, and the trust that's therefore engendered is really important to our success. The foundation document, the Geelong Region Plan, is also significant to the success. The agreed vision, and we've heard a lot of talk this conference already about the importance of having a framework, a vision to work to. That agreed vision, the fact that the 5 councils have signed on to it is important, but the fact that the state and federal governments have also agreed to the plan is fundamental to the success. And therefore, the implementation of the plan is also I suppose made easier because we have agreed priorities. We don't go to approach the state and federal governments all with different priorities. The 5 councils determine their priorities and they prioritise them so that when we talk to the federal government, they know what our number 1 priority is for the G21 region. But I'm not trying to kid you into say it's an easy role or it's an easy job or it's an easy governance structure. It's not. It needs constant work. It needs constant relationship management to make sure that the councils are satisfied with the outcome, that they can see an outcome for the investment that they make. So we have to make sure that we retain our relevance to the 5 councils continually. Sometimes I feel that I have to continually justify our existence to the 5 councils to make sure that they continue to fund us. Without their funding, we wouldn't exist. So it's important that we maintain their confidence. Any change in government at the state or federal level immediately poses a risk to G21 because they may not have any understanding of the work that we do and they may have a different approach to regional development. So when there's a change of government, and there's been a change of government federally recently in Australia the last couple of months, so we now have to broker new relationships with the Prime Minister and the new ministers to ensure they see the value of working as a region and the value to them of G21. Then lastly, another challenge is if the new government changes policy direction in relation to regional development, that's a risk to us. If they decide that regional development is not as important as capital city development, that will be a real risk to us. And if they decide that the city of Greater Geelong is too large a city to be considered regional, which there's a potential for that to happen, that would also be a risk to the whole region if our main centre was removed from regional development consideration. So we're constantly having to identify risks and work out ways to mitigate them and address them. And finally, an example of our success is a recently completed regional growth plan, spatial planning, land use planning for our whole region. This was launched by the State Minister for Planning in April this year. Currently we have about 300,000 people living in our region, but our population projections predict that by 2050 we will have about 500,000 people living in our region. Now that presents a challenge to us because what we don't want to see is that by having another 200,000 people living in the region, that we in some way reduce the amenity and the livability of what is a very attractive region in Australia. So what we've tried to do is avoid the idea of ad hoc urban sprawl by coming to a conclusion about agreed priorities in relation to where this growth will occur in the region. So the growth plan identifies where these extra 200,000 people will live, and importantly, where they will not, where they will work, where are the employment opportunities in our region, and what infrastructure is needed, additional infrastructure needed in our region to actually support an additional 200,000 people living in our region. It also identifies what assets need to be protected, the agricultural land that must not be encroached, the natural assets such as the national parks and the beautiful coastline that needs to be protected. So it's an important document. It took 2 years to develop. High level of public consultation. We went out to public consultation 3 times across this process with the communities of our region. They told us they were happy to grow, they're happy to have another 200,000 people living in our region, but they wanted infrastructure to keep pace with that growth. They didn't want 200,000 more people, but no more infrastructure. As a result, we had a high degree of confidence when we finished the plan that the councils would adopt it because we felt satisfied that our community had been consulted, they'd had a say, and they supported the growth plan that we were proposing. And as a result, our 5 councils unanimously adopted this growth plan. It then went on to our state government, and as I said, the minister launched it in April this year, unamended. He didn't change one sentence in the plan, which we were really pleased about. And so it's now the agreed, adopted blueprint for planning in our region out to 2050. So that's a high level of success for G21. It would not have been able to be achieved by each council working on its own because land use planning accommodating another 200,000 people isn't an issue affecting one council. It affects all 5 councils in our region. So that's one example of the success that we've had at G21. So thank you for listening to me. You can follow us on Twitter if you're interested. We're big users of social media. You can like us on Facebook, or if you want to find out more, visit our website to have a good look at all the work that we do at G21. And thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elaine. It was a really excellent practical illustration of those principles which Paolo outlined. And it was clear from your presentation that there is a need to work across the administrative boundaries. There is a need to focus on strategic aspects, and there is importance to have the trust, to build the trust and cherish it. And the importance of the job you are doing, the managing these relationships, which are not given forever, and this is a big challenge for you. And what was also important, you illustrated that what you achieved there, it is not possible to be achieved separately by those 5 councils. I think this was very, very good illustration. Many thanks for this. I would like to invite now Gina Greathouse. She is from Franklin County, and she has been working in the field of economic development for over 23 years. And she's currently the Senior Vice President for Economic Development and is responsible for Commerce Lexicon Economic Development Team. You have the floor. Thank you.
Well, good morning again. I'm Jenna Greathouse from Lexington, Kentucky, but I work for the Chamber of Commerce. And our chamber, I'm not a planner, so I feel a little different being up here amongst this group of planning organizations, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. I work for the Chamber of Commerce, but I manage our Economic Development Division, which is a little different than most. Some chambers of commerce are either membership-driven or other groups are economic development-driven. In 2007, we blended 2 organizations together for the purpose of creating better common goals for the Bluegrass region. However, I'm really here representing the Bluegrass Alliance and the Central Kentucky Regional Public Policy Council. A little bit about what I do in terms of economic development for the Bluegrass Alliance and for the region. Of course, we have 3 goals: business retention and expansion, where we're supporting existing business. We feel very strongly that the companies that are already in Lexington need a great amount of support to help retain and help them grow and prosper. We encourage that expansion by coordinating the needs of business, being the go-between between state government, city government, and many of the other intergovernmental agencies, and we have a common goal of visiting with 150 companies a year. Business attraction really is our strong suit, so we are out participating in recruitment trips with economic development partners to market the Bluegrass region. So again, not just Lexington's area, but the surrounding counties, and I'll get into a little bit more of that. We travel to meet high-level site consultants who are managing the economic development prospects with targeted companies, and we recruit these new industries by focusing on some key strategic targets. And for the Bluegrass region, strategic targets for us are geared around computer industries, visitor industries, and gaming. We have a lot of people that visit Lexington between the racetrack and some kind of medical conferences. Business and professional services, that's one of our biggest sectors. Life sciences, of course, the equine industry, and a niche for us would be renewable energy based on much of the research that's going on at UK. And again, everyone needs to be focusing on entrepreneurial development. So we guide aspiring entrepreneurs through that process of starting up. And we have a team in our office. There's about 8 of us, including members of the Small Business Development Center from the US government. And we coordinate our little entrepreneurial events, including Geeks Night Out. It sounds silly, but when you're trying to get entrepreneurs out of their garages, it pulls people together in a unique method. A little bit about our MSA. We're 106th in terms of size out of 362 MSAs in the USA. The population of the MSA was 472,000. But if you took into account the Bluegrass Alliance, which is again the region that our economic development group markets, it pulls in much more. It's about 600,000. Very centrally located. We're within 600 miles of 50% of the U.S. population. We're at the crossroads of 2 major north, south, east, west interstates. We're the second largest city and region in the state, just behind Louisville, Kentucky, home of the Kentucky Derby. And one of the key strengths of our region is that we're a highly educated workforce. Many people don't have that strong of an impression about education in Kentucky, but Lexington, Kentucky, and the Bluegrass region, 41% of our population, 25 years and older, have a bachelor's degree or higher, which ties us, makes us number 12th in the country and puts us on par with Boston, Massachusetts. So many people have a different perception of Kentucky, but if you looked at the 2 large metros, very specifically the Lexington Bluegrass region, we're tied with Boston at number 12. Almost 18% has an advanced degree or higher, and number 6 in the United States. A lot of that is attributed to the 70,000 people that are enrolled in 10 colleges and universities within a 30-mile radius of the central core of Lexington. Very diverse economy. So when the United States had a recession, Lexington took a hit, but not quite as big a one because we are so diverse, Lexington and the Bluegrass. So business and professional services accounts for 21% of our economy. We're the hub for the eastern half of Kentucky for business and professional services, healthcare, retail, and education. Healthcare also plays a major role in our community. 16% of our workforce is in healthcare. And again, education, major jobs in education because of the number of universities and the public school system. Major employers in Lexington, I'm sure most of you are familiar with some of these. Amazon has 3,000 jobs in Fayette County and also in Clark County, which is outside of Lexington. It's one of the 8 counties in our region. Xerox has 3,000 people. Lexmark has its world headquarters in Lexington with 3,000 people. Lockheed Martin, 1,800, and Toyota in the region is one of our largest. When you get into the surrounding counties of the Bluegrass region, these are a few of our other large ones. Again, government-related, university-related, and Toyota being the largest. A little bit about the urban services boundary. So I thought I was a little bit unique, but as I watched the presentations yesterday, again, I'm not an urban planner, but many of the people in the presentations yesterday talked about your green belt. So not knowing so much about urban planning, we always felt like Lexington was very special in terms of the green belt we have. So that green belt was created back in the late 1950s to preserve our farmland, and we're known as the thoroughbred capital of the world, and it's not green on this map, but the white belt around Fayette County houses our thoroughbred farm and farmland, and it's very difficult to rezone the farmland, which makes us rely on the region. So you'll see more of our manufacturing jobs in the surrounding counties, which again are within a 30-mile radius of us. Our workforce comes to Lexington for more of the business and professional services. However, the average wage, the higher average wage is actually in the manufacturing jobs. So the higher wages are in the surrounding county. Business and professional services are super jobs, but they're not creating as many indirect and induced. And that urban services boundary makes land inside Fayette County at a huge premium. So the average price of an industrial piece of property in Lexington would be over $150,000 an acre. If you went to the surrounding counties, it's going to be $25,000 to $30,000 an acre. So this is what the Bluegrass Alliance is. Again, Lexington and Fayette County is the blue in the central, and then surrounding us in the green are the 7 counties that we market. It's a partnership of economic development professionals, and we promote the region for the benefit of the region and for job growth. There are, again, 8 counties: Bourbon, Clark, Franklin, Jessamine, Scott, Madison, and Woodford. And again, this draws in more than the MSA. So we actually take Lexington and the surrounding counties to do our marketing. The Bluegrass Alliance has been around for over 20 years. We are not a formal organization, very informal, unlike Elaine. There are times that we feel like it would be better to be a little more formalized, and then there are often times that it's a lot easier to get things accomplished by not being so formal. Common goals: we cooperate on economic development projects and jobs. Public policy, it's again a non-governmental partnership, and because of the Bluegrass Alliance, we rely on the surrounding counties for our workforce in Fayette County as well. Why were we formed? Again, for the benefit of job creation. The individual counties had their own identities. We promote that regional cooperation. If you looked at each of the counties, they all have their own unique things about them. Lexington, again, is the core. And we feel like if a job, we being Commerce Lexington and the economic development team for the Bluegrass Alliance, we're very strongly supportive and recognize how much more Lexington is reliant upon the surrounding counties in the region. Sometimes the region's not as supportive of the big city of Lexington, but we feel very, very strongly that we couldn't do it without the surrounding counties. Accomplishments for the Bluegrass Alliance as the economic development group: Toyota. So again, Toyota is in Scott County, which is just north of Fayette County. There's 6,000 jobs at Toyota. Many years ago, it came here in 1988. Amazon.com has 2,000 jobs in Lexington, but last year, as a result of our economic development team, 750 jobs located in Winchester, which is Clark County, which is east of Lexington. They're not your typical distribution jobs. They are it's not a call center, it's their back office operation. YSPS is a Japanese manufacturing company that had a very specific goal of looking at Lexington, Kentucky. They wanted to be in Lexington, and we did not have the right location, and we knew the special spot for them was in Scott County. Central Kentucky Regional Public Policy Group is not nearly as old as the Bluegrass Alliance. So the Bluegrass Alliance, again, is over 20 years old and loosely formed economic development group, as is this Regional Public Policy Group. And we lobby in Washington and in Frankfurt for common goals. It just came about in the last 5 years. Again, it's public officials and economic developers making a joint agenda, I think similar to Elaine also. Some of our goals, some of the things that the Bluegrass Alliance does, so key things that we did. So again, we're funded, Commerce Lexington is funded by the private sector and the public sector of Lexington, Kentucky, but we market the region. So some of the things that we've done to support our economic developers in the region, we created an economic development website, and we do all the marketing for the region because the smaller communities don't have the funding the way we do. So we do have a significant amount of dollars to market the region. When you get into the surrounding counties, their budgets are significantly smaller. So they rely on us to do the actual trade shows, the special events, the calling on consultants in the different cities, and calling on companies within our strategic targets. Challenges for us. We talked yesterday, for those of you that were here, Kentucky is a relatively small state, 4.2 million people, but there are 120 different counties within the state, and 120 different counties are competing for dollars from the state government. So we don't have cost-sharing agreements. We're not funded at all by the regional communities, unlike Elaine, and again, she's more formal. But we have a lack of funding from our partners, but we still believe in what we do. Next steps, hopefully there'll be an increased willingness to use our unique landscape as resources and a focal point for these shared development ideas. Greater economic integration among the participating counties, that's our goal. And then efforts to harmonize local public services, so mass transit between the communities because our workforce comes in. It's not there yet. We'd like to see it happen and hope to see it happen sooner. And thank you all. And last but not least, just a couple rankings and accolades. Sorry, I'm a marketer, so I'm going to give you all a couple cool things about Lexington you might not have known. And thank you again for having the Bluegrass region represented at the conference today.
Thank you very much. This was a very interesting example how informally the couple of counties may achieve the goals. You referred to some principles which were mentioned by Paolo. So there is a need to have a joint agenda, and you strive for this. A lot of those relations are informal. They are easier to operate. And you had real success. You attracted a lot of businesses which otherwise were not possible. Now we have come to the hosting region in Emilia-Romagna, and I would like to invite Maria Valdinosi. She is a sociologist, graduated sociologist, but has been working for more than 20 years at the province of Forli-Cesena, and she is involved very heavily in the programming of the use of European Regional Development Fund in this region, and she will share her experience in urban-rural partnerships. Thank you very much for joining.
Benvenuti in Emilia-Romagna, parlerò in italiano e sono qui per presentare il caso di studio che ha riguardato una delle 9 province di questa regione e quindi inizierò dandovi alcune informazioni sul nostro territorio e sul caso di studio dell'OCSE su Forlì e Cesena. Il caso di studio ha riguardato 24 dei 30 comuni della provincia di Forlì Cesena. 2 di questi sono comuni urbani di media dimensione, Forlì e Cesena. Gli altri 22 sono comuni rurali con differenti livelli di sviluppo e di specializzazione. Principali caratteristiche dell'area sono una elevata qualità della vita, un andamento demografico positivo grazie all'immigrazione, non solo nelle aree urbane ma anche in quelle rurali, collinari. Inoltre c'è una forte rilevanza dell'agricoltura con un valore aggiunto più elevato della media nazionale, 3,3% nella provincia di Forlì Cesena rispetto all'1,8% in Italia. Una produzione agricola collegata ad altre attività economiche nel settore industriale e in quello dei servizi. Quindi c'è tutto quello che è un distretto collegato all'agricoltura che fa diventare più forte economicamente l'intera zona attraverso un distretto agroindustriale. Altre importanti caratteristiche che vorrei mettere in valore sono l'importanza storica di un elevato capitale sociale che da sempre facilita le relazioni economiche, tanto nella concorrenza quanto nella cooperazione. Tale fiducia guida il processo di cooperazione tra attori privati e pubblici, come ha messo sotto luce Paolo Veneri anche nella sua introduzione. A questo dato storico io vorrei aggiungere che si sono affiancate azioni rivolte ad ancorare questo capitale sociale a forme stabili di cooperazione e ancora successivamente a utilizzare la cooperazione e la collaborazione fra attori pubblici e privati per accompagnare obiettivi e prassi innovative. Vorrei sottolineare anche che questo tipo di approccio non è solo nel campo economico, ma è molto importante anche nel campo sociale. Infatti, nelle relazioni sociali è molto forte la rete della solidarietà. Ci sono, ad esempio, nel nostro territorio tantissime associazioni no profit e di volontariato, 326 associazioni di volontariato e 370 associazioni di promozione sociale, e queste associazioni operano sia nei centri urbani così come nelle aree rurali e nelle 2 città e anche nei centri di collina e di montagna. Quindi vorrei sottolineare il valore qualitativo delle relazioni interpersonali che tengono unita la comunità, e questo è un tratto fondante della nostra area. Questo carattere ha finora influenzato in modo molto positivo la realizzazione delle nostre partnership, delle nostre collaborazioni e delle nostre cooperazioni. Le istituzioni pubbliche promuovono, facilitano e sostengono in molti modi il processo collaborativo. C'è un forte dialogo e sinergia tra i diversi livelli di governo, la regione, le province e i comuni. La regione definisce le macrostrategie, la provincia riveste un ruolo importante nella loro implementazione, ciascuna identificata secondo specifiche necessità e sfide. Un esempio di questo modo di procedere che vorrei accennare brevemente è il documento unico di programmazione, che integra le diverse risorse europee, nazionali e regionali che alimentano le politiche e le azioni strategiche e che è stato elaborato in stretto coordinamento fra il livello regionale e le province, che hanno poi avuto il compito fondamentale di coinvolgere poi gli attori locali, siano essi quelli pubblici, siano quelli privati, in modo da condividere le strategie e implementare con le priorità locali e territoriali gli obiettivi proposti. Questa procedura noi la definiamo di programmazione negoziata, so che è stata illustrata anche ieri sera dalla collega Silvia Grandi e quindi su questo non mi soffermerò, ma è comunque una modalità molto interessante di tentativo di integrare a livello verticale e orizzontale le politiche, i territori e i livelli amministrativi. La provincia, non posso esimermi dal parlare del mio ente, dell'ente in cui lavoro da oltre 20 anni e del ruolo delle funzioni importanti che questa svolge nelle partnership fra territorio rurale e territorio urbano. La provincia si dimostra infatti una istituzione fondamentale in grado di riunire, coordinare, gestire ed assistere con, ma anche senza finanziamenti, a seconda dei casi, diversi processi di collaborazione. La provincia funge quindi da istituzione intermedia, facilitando il dialogo tra differenti portatori di interesse. La provincia ha in questi anni cercato di facilitare quindi questo dialogo, la convergenza fra differenti contesti urbani e rurali, cercando sempre l'equilibrio e le relazioni nei diversi programmi, nei progetti, sia quelli propri sia quelli invece di origine regionale. Si potrebbe dire che per quanto riguarda la relazione urbano-rurale, la provincia è il trattino. Si potrebbe anche dire che in qualche modo noi siamo una partnership e quindi per questo ci siamo occupati in questi anni di creare poi ulteriori partnership. Alcune di queste sono formali, altre informali. In alcuni casi sono tavoli di consultazione, quindi cose molto informali, molto semplici, dove semplicemente chiamiamo gli attori principali a collaborare. In altri casi tavoli di concertazione, quindi dove prendiamo delle vere e proprie decisioni e decidiamo come indirizzare le risorse. In ogni caso comunque possiamo sfruttare una riconosciuta fiducia e una visione condivisa del territorio. Questo è molto importante, vorrei mettere l'accento su questo aspetto, perché è importante che si parta dallo stesso livello di conoscenze e di condivisione di quelle che sono le problematiche e i bisogni del territorio. Da noi, ad esempio, questo è stato facilitato in questi anni anche da un lavoro di analisi che abbiamo portato avanti dei dati socio-economici attraverso l'elaborazione annuale di un Atlante della programmazione che ci ha consentito di approfondire la conoscenza delle situazioni e anche dell'andamento storico di tutta una serie di indicatori demografici e economici raccolti a livello comunale. Vorrei brevemente parlare di due tipiche partnership che abbiamo costruito e che sono state oggetto di studio di OCSE, una nell'ambito dell'agroindustria appunto e una nell'ambito del turismo. Lo scopo della partnership in agroindustria è stato quello di incrementare le attività di ricerca tra le imprese lungo l'intera catena di produzione, consentendo alla totalità del territorio di essere collegata al mercato. Essa coinvolge l'intero sistema produttivo, differenti settori economici, agricoltura, ricerca e sviluppo, manifatturiero, servizi avanzati di comunicazione e differenti aree urbane e rurali all'interno del territorio integrato di Forlì-Cesena. La provincia coordina inoltre un tavolo formale, si chiama il tavolo verde, di discussione in cui tutti gli attori principali del sistema possono discutere e decidere insieme. La Regione promuove questo approccio e finanzia dei soggetti intermedi, centri di ricerca, creando un processo di integrazione settoriale e territoriale, incentrato sull'intera filiera. Nel campo del turismo, invece, un'esperienza che abbiamo seguito e portato avanti è stata quella volta a promuovere l'offerta di servizi turistici integrati sul territorio, correlati all'agricoltura, al paesaggio e all'importante eredità storico-culturale che per fortuna abbiamo importanti testimonianze dell'epoca medievale e rinascimentale. Quindi gli agricoltori, in questo caso del territorio rurale, sono stati incentivati ad aprire le loro strutture, in precedenza riservate esclusivamente alla produzione, e aprirle ai visitatori e ai turisti, diversificando quindi le proprie attività e rafforzando in questo modo l'identità territoriale. L'eredità storico-culturale è stata riqualificata e resa accessibile ai turisti tanto nelle aree rurali quanto in quelle urbane, e la provincia ha coordinato il processo nella sua interezza, coinvolgendo gli attori pubblici e privati, e in questo quadro abbiamo cercato di utilizzare al meglio anche i fondi di sviluppo regionale destinati sia alle aree rurali e mettendoli a sistema con interventi importanti nelle aree rurali. Qui in questa slide alcune parole chiave che emergono dal nostro caso di studio: area, regione, dialogo, cooperazione, provincia. Vorrei soffermarmi adesso invece sulle sfide per il futuro, le conoscenze acquisite. Allora, noi abbiamo quindi registrato un numero rilevante, abbiamo un numero rilevante di partnership urbano-rurali montane, formali e informali, ognuna con attori differenti. Abbiamo una situazione molto ampia e diversificata. Ogni partnership riguarda una differente area funzionale di interesse a seconda delle finalità della stessa che va anche oltre i confini amministrativi provinciali o regionali. Quindi in questo caso abbiamo quell'approccio funzionale che ci veniva raccomandato, un approccio funzionale alle sfide che individua di volta in volta la dimensione territoriale più adeguata. In alcune nostre esperienze tale dimensione è andata poi modificandosi nel tempo in base al successo o alla necessità di rafforzare l'impatto delle attività oppure per razionalizzare i costi di gestione. Ci sono dei casi in cui l'area vasta ha garantito e garantisce una massa critica che consente quindi di portare i servizi anche nelle aree remote, rurali. Questo ad esempio è il caso dei trasporti, dove la società è una società di ambito provinciale che poi adesso è diventata di ambito subregionale, che quindi coinvolge 3 intere province e che grazie a questa quindi razionalizzazione dei costi riesce a mantenere i servizi di trasporto e quindi l'accessibilità anche nelle aree più remote. Poi un insegnamento che ci deriva da queste esperienze di partnership è quello di prestare una grande attenzione alla sostenibilità economica delle partnership formali. Oggi questa è un'esigenza ancora più forte in Italia, nel nostro paese, perché ci troviamo in una situazione, come voi sapete, di forte diminuzione di risorse pubbliche e di stagnazione economica. Quindi sentiamo in modo ancora più urgente la necessità di evitare coalizioni o collaborazioni che durano solamente il tempo del finanziamento pubblico. Questa complessità di cui vi ho parlato solo per titoli, naturalmente non potevo andare in profondità, ma il caso di studio è a disposizione di tutti. Questa complessità e questa moltitudine di partnership può talvolta produrre una sovrapposizione di spreco e di sinergia. In questo senso volevo sottolineare ancora una volta l'importanza del ruolo di coordinamento, in questo caso un ruolo di coordinamento molto importante che è stato svolto dalle province, dalla provincia di Forlì Cesena, ma direi in generale dalle province anche in questa regione. Quindi un richiamo anche che faccio ai miei connazionali, forse gli altri non potranno capire, la necessità di una riflessione più attenta e meno superficiale oggi in Italia rispetto a questo tema, dove si pensa di semplificare e di fare economia eliminando questo livello di governance. Quindi c'è un progetto di eliminazione delle province per semplificare i livelli amministrativi, ma questo io credo porterà un gravissimo danno se verrà portato avanti. Occorre una maggiore attenzione alle questioni rurban, quale impulso fondamentale al lavoro in partnership per favorire una strategia multisettoriale. Occorre ancora, secondo quella che è la nostra esperienza, quello che emerge dal nostro caso di studio, rinforzare l'integrazione tra le politiche urbane finanziate attraverso il FESR e le politiche rurali a livello nazionale e regionale, al fine di incrementare le sinergie dei diversi progetti e delle partnership sviluppati a livello locale. Quindi la necessità di un'integrazione maggiore anche degli strumenti, basandosi sui bisogni reali dei territori, quindi ripartire dal territorio, questo potrebbe essere così il titolo di un impegno di lavoro, dalle sue specificità e bisogni ad una giusta scala, e la scala giusta è fra le micro municipalità e le macro dimensioni o regionali o nazionali. Ancora vorrei concludere parlando di un tema molto importante di cui in Italia si parla molto poco, ma mi pare di aver letto anche di aver capito che in generale è un po' una lacuna che abbiamo sulla necessità di fare maggiore attenzione alla valutazione e al monitoraggio. Questo è un tema molto importante, tante volte noi diamo tutto per scontato, pensiamo che le cose vadano bene, che quindi non abbiamo bisogno di fermarci e di guardare i dati e i risultati. In questo senso credo che invece sia molto importante condividere l'analisi delle sfide e dei bisogni, migliorare l'apprendimento tramite il monitoraggio e la valutazione, individuare pochi e chiari indicatori per migliorare i risultati e quindi rendere più trasparente e meno onerosa l'attività di monitoraggio e fare una valutazione anche del processo di attuazione, perché potrebbe anche essere che dobbiamo correggere il percorso e anche dobbiamo correggere o cambiare lo strumento che stiamo utilizzando. Questa è la necessità che dobbiamo sempre avere chiara se vogliamo trovare il modo di raggiungere gli obiettivi che ci diamo nel modo meno oneroso possibile. La partecipazione e la condivisione sono sempre un valore aggiunto, a partire dalla condivisione dell'analisi dei bisogni, della scelta degli obiettivi e delle priorità e dell'individuazione delle misure di valutazione dei risultati. La valutazione credo che dobbiamo viverla di più non come un adempimento formale, ma come un'opportunità di conoscenza per migliorare, e riflettevo ieri che assistiamo sempre di più ad una maggiore considerazione e attenzione ai dati e alle informazioni da parte del mercato, del business, mentre emerge sempre di più una certa insufficienza in questo campo da parte della sfera pubblica. L'analisi del dato invece è molto importante per conoscere e decidere nell'ambito delle politiche pubbliche e in questo senso ritengo quindi molto strategico, molto importante questo incontro, gli studi che l'hanno preceduto e quindi perché ci hanno consentito di riflettere di più sulla nostra esperienza e perché ci fa conoscere le esperienze realizzate in tante diverse parti del mondo. Grazie per l'attenzione, desidero concludere ringraziando per il loro apporto, la loro collaborazione Antonella Bonaduce, Francesca Palmieri e Claudio Mura che ci hanno aiutato nella gestione del caso di studi OCSE. Grazie.
Many thanks for this presentation. I would like to invite all of you just to have a close look on this description of this case study because it touches a lot of principles which have been outlined in the keynote address. I appreciate very much this presentation. As we are running out of time, I would like to invite immediately the last case study from Finland. I would like to invite now Ms. Hilka Lane. She is involved for several years in managing the programs financed by the European Union, and she will just tell us about the case study from Finland.
Thank you. And hello, everybody. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to have this invitation, this Congress, and have the opportunity to bring you some examples of the rural-urban partnership as in development work in central Finland. You will see that our region is very different what we heard before. In my short presentation, I will give you example of our vital processes to fostering and supporting rural-urban partnership in central Finland. I also will give you a very short description of the area and what function we are planning to renew partnership more accessible and flexible in our county. First, central Finland in brief. Central Finland is a county in the middle of Finland. It consists 5% of Finland's land area. Forests and waterways are dominated in Saarijärvi-Viitasari sub-region as well as in Jyväskylä landscape. Jyväskylä is the capital city of central Finland. Our county accounts for 5% of the Finnish population. almost half of this population is living in the city of Jyväskylä, and over 60% in the Jyväskylä sub-region, the light blue area in the map. The largest sub-region, rural area in central Finland, is Saarijärvi-Viitasaari sub-region, where I come. It consists of 8 municipalities. Oh, and it's the green or perhaps yellow, light yellow area in the north of this map. It's a rural area far away from urban centers. For example, from the municipality center of Pihtipudas is almost 140 kilometers to city of Jyväskylä and over 400 kilometers to Helsinki, to capital of Finland, and about 600 kilometers to the place where the Santa Claus is living. It is sparsely populated region. Only 5.2 people is living in the square kilometer. Because being far away from urban center, it has to have intermunicipal cooperation, which has been strengthened during EU structural fund time or period, as how you will put it. A little more the regional profile. The capital of central Finland, Jyväskylä, is one of the fastest growing cities in Finland. Its GDP per capita is like Finland's value in average. The fact is that the forest-based industry, paper mills, paper machine manufacturing, wood house building, etc., produce a great deal of central Finland's regional income, also in the sub-region Saarijärvi, where metal and wood products industry flourish in this northern part of central Finland. Still, we have agriculture in Saarijärvi-Viitasaari region in a big role. This is one of the main reasons why the GDP in the Saarijärvi-Viitasaari region is so low, only 2/3 of Jyväskylä region and only 60% of the Finnish GDP. In the same time, aging of population predominate in the countryside of central Finland. Almost all other sub-regions except Jyväskylä are in top 20 list of the old age dependency ratio list of Finland. In fact, in sub-region of Jyväskylä, the old age dependency ratio is lower than the national average level today. The forecast to 2020 give no comfort. In each 100 citizens, there will be almost 60 or 88 senior citizens in the sub-region of Saarijärvi-Viitasaari. Unemployment is also one of the topic national issue, as well in Saarijärvi-Viitasaari as in Jyväskylä city. Workplaces are losing mostly from industry and agriculture. This is a big ace to urban-rural partnership. And how we are using the partnership today. I give you some example. The first, the main findings on the OECD research was that the involvement of private sector and other than municipalities' public institutions seems to be low in Finland, in our region. I do not completely agree with this conclusion because I always yesterday tell you our regional management committee working. This regional management committee make a cooperation and its role in very big role in the development issues and in administration in regional level. Regional management committee represent formal partnerships and informal partnership. It represents urban and rural stakeholders from central Finland's municipalities, members from regional administration. in region and as well members of the Labour and Trade Organization. Formal division are Rural Division and Division of Assessment of the Environmental and Social Impacts. Rural Division monitoring rural areas development. And both of these departments are based on the law of the regional development in Finland. The informal division are Business Division and Division of Knowledge and Labour Force Assessment. Division of Knowledge and Labour Force produce and give useful information for these issues to organizations all over the central Finland. And Business Division has members from Regional Council and from Regional Public Administration, but particularly business persons from companies both urban and rural areas. They are local expertise with solid understanding of the rural and urban business development. This business division makes succession to the Regional Management Committee and of allocation of ERD and national fundings. The other example of rural-urban partnership is our distant services. In a very big role is to improve the efficiency of services delivery throughout the whole region of central Finland. In sparsely spaced area, we need a new solution to the services. That's why 2 minutes, okay. That's why 7 service points has been taken to use in Sari and Viitasari. Nowadays, citizens for rural area have an opportunity to have video negotiation to experts of tax advice, social security issues, legal advice, for example. And what will the future be in our region? We are building up the bioeconomy center in the rural area in Saarijärvi-Viitasari municipality. There is a lot of stakeholders in this partnership, as you see in the circle over surrounding the bioeconomy campus building. The center has been coordinating development of bioenergy cluster work in Central Finland during the last 7 years. It was an outstanding decision to give ringleader to the rural partner. This decision has been made by Central Finland Regional Management, which I earlier described. This center offers education, different kinds of services, and make bioenergy research and development. This center has possibility to be an open innovation area for development, bioeconomy, and being a part of the national development of innovation network cooperation, which is leading by Joensuu city in the eastern part of Finland. The European Union and Regional Council of Central Finland plays a significant role in the development of this bioeconomy center. I have one more example. Is it possible to show? Very quickly. We are making now our strategy to 2020. And until now, it is typical that we make up to bottom and centralization strategy papers. But now we are purpose to make participation and multi-purpose strategy. We don't have thematic groups, but joint discussions and seminars to foster new ideas. Middle of October, we always arrange a big celebration in which over 200 citizens, people from different organizations, politicians and firm owners over the county joined the workshop planning the future of Central Finland. So we have very flexible process with allows change during it. With the open access portal, everyone we could have comments and ideas. This new kind process, I think we can use this new kind process to find real need of rural-urban partnership. It's outcome only in the very end what is our final solution. I truly believe we do manage to make better rural-urban partnership by having confidence for each other, joined our vision, and after all things really working together. Thank you.
Many thanks for illustrating how it's difficult to manage urban-rural partnership in such specific situation where you face the challenge of the sparse population and the lack of people. Now we are a little bit running out of time, but we just give the chance to ask a couple of questions. Afternoon there will be more chance for the discussion, but I will take a few questions from the audience to the panelists, to the speakers. Who would like to ask the question? Everything seems to be clear. Yes, Richard, please.
I thought these were all excellent examples of both public and private sector bodies working together. One of the themes that interests me is the way in which the tools that are applied by these different bodies together result in the desired outcomes. And I wondered whether there is any analysis not only of the effectiveness of working together as teams, but whether some of the regulations or financial incentives that the partners had at their availability have changed as a result of joining up and recognizing that perhaps not all of those tools were working previously to deliver the desired outcome.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Maybe some further question before we give the floor to the panelists. Not. I wonder who could try to reply. Maybe the representative of the Emilia-Romagna.
Ok. Ma i casi sono diversi, proverò a fare qualche esempio. Nel tema dell'agricoltura, dell'agroindustria che prima ho richiamato, ci sono anche strumenti utilizzati anche a seconda appunto degli obiettivi. Allora c'è uno strumento che è uno strumento non formalizzato attraverso forme giuridiche, ma è il tavolo verde, ad esempio, che richiamavo, e che prevede il fatto che la provincia coordina un tavolo che è un incontro periodico con tutti i soggetti interessati, portatori di interesse. Questi soggetti interessati sono in particolare dei rappresentanti di associazioni, di categorie professionali e quindi associazioni degli agricoltori, associazioni delle cooperative che fanno agroindustria e associazioni anche di imprenditori che si occupano di questo tema. Questo è un esempio, quindi qui non c'è una particolare forma giuridica, c'è un rapporto che è incentrato molto sulla fiducia, sul coinvolgimento, sul riconoscimento dell'importanza del ruolo pubblico da parte dei privati e il riconoscimento viceversa da parte del ruolo pubblico della provincia dell'importanza di capire le ragioni, i bisogni, le proposte che vengono dal mondo imprenditoriale privato. Questo è un caso. Poi ad esempio sempre nel tema agroindustriale Per invece affinare e avere degli obiettivi molto più precisi e finalizzati si utilizzano delle strumentazioni giuridiche di tipo di diritto privato, per cui si creano o delle società delle società che possono chiamarsi società consortili o sono società anche a volte per azione. Ad esempio abbiamo delle società. Abbiamo una società Centuria che è stata creata 20 anni fa per impulso del pubblico, della provincia e dei principali comuni, che voleva incentivare l'innovazione tecnologica nel campo agricolo e voleva assolutamente anche migliorare la sinergia e lo scambio positivo fra la ricerca, fra il mondo dell'università, abbiamo un'università che si occupa di agraria, di scienze agrarie, e il mondo invece, e quindi le ricadute in termini di miglioramento dei prodotti, delle produzioni. Per fare questo è stata creata una società ad hoc dando spazio ai privati, quindi è una società dove la maggioranza è una maggioranza che con il tempo, prima finanziata con soldi pubblici, poi con il tempo si è dato spazio ai privati e quindi adesso la maggioranza è dei privati, ma c'è comunque una partecipazione pubblico-privata. Questi sono due esempi. Stessa cosa anche nel turismo, ecco, volevo dire che anche nel turismo abbiamo utilizzato questo tipo di strumento, cioè una società pubblico-privata che gestisce l'itinerario di valorizzazione della strada dei vini e dei sapori che ho richiamato brevemente.
Many thanks. Before we break for lunch, I have the announcement. There are 3 rural visits organized tomorrow. The one on historical walking tour around the city of Bologna from 3 o'clock. The second one on public-private partnership in rural urban areas to develop the high cuisine traditional food, wine and landscape from 13:30. And the third one, innovative SMEs, so focus on promoting local cuisine and cultural heritage. So please, during the lunch break, register if you are interested in one of those rural visits. I would like to ask you to give the applause for the panelists, for the keynote speaker, and I think this was very, very interesting session. Thanks a lot. Now it's the break until what? 2 o'clock, right? No, 14, yes. We started 14 hours. Very good. Thanks a lot.